All right, I'll get started here. Thank you for having me and Vince here to talk about these beautiful vehicles that we have to share and give you a little bit about, a little knowledge about. I could probably talk about the all-new Dodge Charger Daytona for hours and hours, and I've got about 5 to 7 minutes here, so I'm gonna move quick through some of the things that make this car special and make it what it is. This is the 8th generation of the Dodge Charger. We've been producing this car in and out, but since 1966. And there's a lot of sharing in terms of what the car looks like, how it feels, how it drives, with that iconic vehicle. And it is so iconic for the industry and many folks that have driven one or had one in the past. The very big difference about this one is that this is the very first all-electric Charger. And that stands out in many ways on the backdrop of everything that we've been discussing here this morning. But for us, it's how we push the next level. We're using it to create a better muscle car because we didn't just create an EV. As you can see, it looks very different than many you've seen. We created the all-new muscle car, and it happens to be powered by electricity. This one features a 100 kilowatt hour battery and twin 250 kilowatt motors, one front and one rear. And the rear also features a mechanical limited slip differential. So again, performance car attributes, going to give you better handling on the road and on the track. Those twin motors also give us all-wheel drive. This one here is our RT, kind of our entry-level model, and then we have a Scat Pack at the top. That produces up to 670 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. That vehicle is the world's quickest and most powerful muscle car available right now. So again, using that electrification to create a better muscle car. And that's really what this car is about. It is about leaning into the technology, leaning into different enablers to give us the traction that we haven't always had on some of our prior muscle cars, to have the attitude. And that goes into a lot of the customer experience pieces that we put into this car. Like many of our muscle cars in the past, this has all of our drive modes that you would be likely to see: sport, track, drag. And those modes are really going to change the personality of the car, change the performance of the car, tighten up the suspension, tighten up the handling, really kind of give you a different vehicle depending on what you're using it for that day, whether you're commuting to work or taking it out on the track or a nice windy road. So again, that creating that experience and keeping that experience. Those drive modes are easily accessible on the steering wheel. It's important for us that it's hands-on, eyes-on, driving, connecting with the car. Also on the steering wheel have one of our unique features on Dodge, and that's called Power Shot. We launched that feature on our first PHEV a couple years ago, the Dodge Hornet. And in the Charger Daytona, it offers 40 horsepower at the press of a button. And so that's nice for us because when you're in auto mode, you're getting your maximum range. The car is set up for most efficiency, and then when you go in those other modes, it changes the personality, as I mentioned. With the Power Shot, you don't have to change the whole personality. Maybe you're just merging onto the highway or trying to get around somebody. You can get maximum power at the push of a button, and it goes back to where the car or the drive mode was before. Again, thinking about these use cases and using the customer feedback to deliver those. In an effort to continue to that experience, a big piece of us from a muscle car perspective really comes down to the sound. Right, the historical sound, you start the car, you feel the car, the rumble of the V8, right? If you've been in one around one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's a hard one to just kind of create, right? There's so much that involves with the ICE powertrain, but it was super important that we did that on this car. So our new Charger Daytona offers what we're calling the Fratzonic chambered exhaust. It's a first full BEV exhaust, and it is as loud as the outgoing Hellcat that we had on the Chargers and Challengers. We didn't just record those cars and we're pressing play. These are dynamic sounds that are created from the inputs of the driver, what's happening in the car, what's happening with the motors, just like you would have in a traditional ICE exhaust. I will start the car up here shortly at the end to show you guys that in person. Very different in person if you have heard it on the phone or online. So again, about that, about those experiences. So we have a car that kind of feels like and drives like a muscle car. Looking like it was, it was no question either. And I think our design team knocked it out of the park. But to meet aero and try and get maximum range and deliver those needs of the customer without sacrificing, we have things like this. This is what we call an R-wing. It's neutral to the air as far as the car goes, but it allows us to get that blunt front end, that muscle car look, that muscle car feel, that attitude. And we know how important that is to our customers in terms of how they feel behind the wheel, how they feel when they turn around and look at the car when they're getting out of the vehicle. So a couple little tricks in there, that being one of them. The other is the kind of slick arrow on the back. And what's unique about that is it actually allowed us to create a hatch. So this vehicle is a hatch, not a traditional trunk. On this vehicle here on the two-door, it gives us 133% more cargo area in the back than the outgoing vehicle. So we've got standard all-wheel drive, more cargo. We're kind of getting in this a little bit more of a flexible vehicle for more than just maybe a weekend warrior into a little bit of that UV territory. So nice little tricks in there to expand this a little bit. But as was discussed earlier, we know that a two-door EV isn't for everyone. As a fantastic muscle car as it is, there can be more, and we can do more, and that's part of the plan. So by the second half of this year, this vehicle will be available in a four-door. So I got two kids myself. I know what a pain in the butt it is to go get kids in and out of car seats in a two-door. So access to the rear seat will come along with the four-door, but the powertrains, the performance, everything that I talked about, all those experiences are exactly the same between the two and the four. So we'll have that flexibility in the market as well between offering those two cars. Then by the end of this year, we will have launched our ICE powertrains. We have a twin turbo inline six engine that we'll be putting in this vehicle. It'll come in two performance outputs, 420 horsepower and 550 horsepower. So by the end of this year, by the end of 2025, we will have grown from this car that is just now delivering to dealers to a two-door and a four-door, an ICE and a BEV, the power of choice that we just talked about. So this car will not only deliver the muscle car experience to the traditionalists, the ICEs, perhaps bring people into Dodge brand, into our cars, that maybe haven't considered it before. So really excited to be able to share this vehicle with you, talk a little about what we've been doing, the flexibility of, for us from being able to get in and out of BEV market for two-door, four-door. And so before I hand it over to Vince, I'm gonna start it up for you guys so you can hear it, and then Vince will take over. Vince?
Next, we're going to hear from Vince Galante, the Vice President of Jeep Design.
How you doing, everybody? I'm happy to be here today to kind of introduce you to our brand new Jeep Wagoneer S. This is actually our first vehicle built off our new Stella large platform that, believe it or not, also underpins the Charger next to me. And in the future, it gives us a lot of design flexibility to do kind of windswept shapes like this, but also boxy shapes like our upcoming Recon, and then you'll see it again in a multi-energy fashion, our next generation Cherokee replacement. But what I wanted to talk to you guys today about is a little bit about behind the scenes about the design. And I'll have some pictures going up at the front, up there. But when we first approached, this is our first fully electric Jeep. And it really challenged us to think about some of our most iconic elements, like a 7-slot grille, a boxy profile, in new ways. And so what we needed to do is find new ideas. And what we assembled is the youngest design team we've ever had on a Jeep. So everybody on the wall up there is 80s and 90s babies, even some 2000s babies, if you can believe it. I barely made the cut. But with them brought new ways of working. And so we had to invest in new tools. So that was, we have clay models. We still do clay models of these cars full size. But now we have also virtual reality that allows us to look at those things sooner. We have pencils and paper, we have Photoshop, and now we have artificial intelligence tools to help augment that work. Our user experience designers, they work on all the digital designs in the cars. They have the ability to do real-time user testing and connect with our customers on a daily basis to kind of improve those systems and make sure Uconnect 5 is as good as it can be. And I think one of the last ones I wanted to mention is we recently invested in a multi-million-dollar rolling road wind tunnel, state-of-the-art, which was used on this vehicle and allowed us to design the most aerodynamic Jeep ever. So some really cool investments made into people and the tools that they use to create innovative and modern vehicles. So where I wanted to start on this one is the first challenge we had, which was our 7-slot grille. And I think everybody knows that is the face of Jeep. And for us, all of our Jeeps are authentic and they're functional. And now I have to design a grille that doesn't let any air in. So what do I do there? And to be honest, we struggled for a little bit. We were looking around, we kind of came up empty, like what are we gonna do with this thing? Until a couple of the designers were at the Shinola Hotel in Detroit having a couple drinks, and they noticed this like wonderful ambiance of lighting all around the room. And as they looked closer, there was no light bulbs. So as we do, we kind of walked around and we counted them. There was 17. Some people say 30, but there were 17. And we used that as the inspiration for this grill. And so what you can see is there's lights hidden up underneath these 7 slots that glow down on the bottom. And so that gives you 7 slots during the day, and now you can clearly see that at night. So the way that we like to kind of think about that is our 7 slots went from breathing to seeing. And you can see that here today. The second challenge is I go around the side of the car. And probably from your guys' point of view, you can't see it as well, but the second challenge was aerodynamics. So everybody knows Jeeps have boxy profiles, and when you put that in the wind tunnel, it's a big challenge. And we had a target of 0.3 on this car, which is more aerodynamic by many percent than we've had before. So what were we gonna do? So what we loved about the sketch that was on the wall, it had this kind of bullet-shaped front end. It had these dramatic lines that tapered towards the back, and if you look really closely, you'll see the first hints of this tapered D-pillar all the way in the back that was reminiscent of our original Grand Wagoneer, but also this little hint of a floating wing. And so we thought to ourselves, wow, that's a really cool idea, and it may allow us to the idea was to create a shape through the middle designed by the wind tunnel, and a shape on the side that was boxy and appropriate for a Jeep SUV. But usually the engineers hear floating wings or floating parts, and they're like, there's no way we're gonna let you guys get away with this. I think to their credit, they brought it in their new wind tunnel, and they wanted to see what it could do. And they came back to us and wanted us to exaggerate it even more. So what was a 2-inch floating wing is now 8 or 9 inches on the back, and I think one of the most unique elements of this vehicle. Pretty cool. Then as you go into the inside of the vehicle, what you'll notice is a really harmonious blend of both well thought out, handcrafted materials and technology. And on our Jeeps, we built from the Grand Wagoneer that's on the road today and the Grand Cherokee. We want to have the screens not just floating and off the dashboard, but well integrated into the instrument panel and surrounded by things like metal, like vinyl, and also the right amount of hard controls. Our customers don't really want everything on the screens. We found that through some of that user testing that I was talking about. So as you open this vehicle up, you'll notice this really nice blend of technology and craftsmanship. The other thing you'll notice about it is it's actually spacious inside. Despite the fast roof profile and the floating wing, you might think there's no cargo in this car. There's going to be no leg room. It's too compact. We actually have 35 inches from the front seat to the back seat, which is right on par with our Grand Cherokee product. So although the car looks tidy and efficient, the interior spaciousness is quite large. When you do open that liftgate in the back, you'll notice that you can put the seats down and you can actually get up to 61 cubic feet of cargo space. So pretty good. It does limit a little bit on the upper end of the cargo volume, but the place that we find our customers use most, this car has a very good amount of trunk space. And then the last thing I wanted to mention on the interior is there's 45 inches of screens. I mentioned technology in this vehicle, and I don't always like to state the number and size of the screens that are in there, but in this case, I think it's a really good thing. You would think that all these screens would be very distracting, but the way that we've laid it out with our Uconnect 5 system is you have your heads-up display, you can put your speed up there. On your digital cluster, you can put your navigation there. On the 2 center screens, you can put music on one, and you can put your HVAC controls on the other. So the way I drive it, I find that not only am I not distracted, but I'm not changing apps and looking for things on the screen. They're all first level right at my fingertips. So we like to think of it as kind of a distributed experience that gives you everything kind of at first glance. And then lastly, about the technology, we have a wonderful partnership with another American icon, Macintosh. So this vehicle will offer a segment-exclusive 1,200-watt, 19-speaker sound system. So I think when we put that all together, we've got our first fully electric Jeep, a completely reimagined, iconic 7-slot grille, the most aerodynamic Jeep we've ever created. It's actually, we reached a 0.294 coefficient of drag, an interior that blends technology and well-crafted materials, and at the same time is spacious, all put together by high-tech tools and our youngest design team ever. Thank you.